प्रसार भारती अभिलेखागार की प्रस्तुति सदाबहार सुनहरे दौर का अनमोल खजाना।
সংবাদ পাওয়া গেল শ্যামাপ্রসাদের মরদেহ কাশ্মীর থেকে দমদম বিমান ঘাঁটিতে আসবে বেলা ৩টের সময়। কাতারে কাতারে লোক ছুটে আসে বিমান ঘাঁটিতে, কিন্তু বিমানপথ এসে পৌঁছয় না রাত্রি ৯টার পূর্বে। রাত্রিকালেই সেখান থেকে শোকযাত্রা শুরু হয়। প্রভাতে ভবানীপুরে শ্যামাপ্রসাদের বাটির সম্মুখে রাজপথে অগণিত আবাল বৃদ্ধ বনিতা ব্যাকুল হয়ে ছুটে আসে তাদের প্রিয় নেতা শ্যামাপ্রসাদকে একবার শেষ দর্শন করতে। বাংলার বীর শ্রেষ্ঠ নেতা, বাঙালির চিরপ্রিয় শ্যামাপ্রসাদ, হে বিমুক্তাত্মা ব্রাহ্মণ, তোমাকে আমরা আমাদের শেষ প্রণাম জানাই।
of June 1953. Calcutta has been a witness to many funeral processions, but this one had an additional dimension. There have been equally massive, equally sorrowful congregations of millions, but none that hurt so much. There was only one leader in the country who could stand up to the colossal figure of Jawaharlal Nehru, the Prime Minister of India, in that early flush of independence. That leader was struck with unexpected death. Death, not only unexpected, but there were ample reasons to believe unnatural. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, the country learned, on the 23rd of June 1953, died in a forlorn bungalow near Srinagar. It is painful to recall the circumstances of the death, but to put the record straight, let us look back on what they said. Dr. B.C. Roy, then Chief Minister of West Bengal, wrote a letter to Nehru stating that there were many missing clues about how the death of Shyama Prasad occurred, and that there was the necessity of an inquiry. M.R. Jayakar said that the government, content just with certificates from American tourists, should now realize the gravity of their deeds when it defies all norms of justice and legality. Atulya Ghosh, then chief of the West Bengal Congress, said it was unthinkable that the Kashmir government did not consult Dr. B.C. Roy for the treatment of Shyama Prasad. An inquiry must be ordered, without which the public resentment would snowball. Purushottam Das Tandon said that he was not sure that all medical facilities were made available to Shyama Prasad. Jayaprakash Narayan said that the way the Kashmir government treated Shyama Prasad was nothing short of a crime. H.V. Kamath said the Prime Minister should rise above individual bias and party interests and order an inquiry, because the circumstances of Shyama Prasad's arrest and medical treatment were full of suspicious details.
আপনারা জানতে চাইছিলেন ওর মৃত্যু প্রসঙ্গ সম্বন্ধে, কিন্তু সেটা সম্বন্ধে কি আমরাই জানি? কেননা সেটা তো সবই কুহেলিকাচ্ছন্ন হয়ে আছে। তাকে জওহরলালও বলছেন, শেখ আবদুল্লাহ বলছে তুমি কমিউনাল, বলে আমি কমিউনাল হই, যাই হই, ওখানে কি ঘটছে বলো না। উনি যাচ্ছেন সভাপতি পারমিট না নিয়ে, সেই জন্যে তাকে অ্যারেস্ট করবে ভারত সরকার। ভারত সরকার অ্যারেস্ট করবে, উনিও জানেন যে করবে, করতে পারে, কারণ আমি তো আইন অমান্য করছি। উনি কিন্তু যখন সেই ট্রেন থেকে নামলেন তখন সেই ট্রেনেতেই ওর সঙ্গে এলেন ওখানকার ডিস্ট্রিক্টের ম্যাজিস্ট্রেট এবং পুলিশ গিয়েছিলেন। তারা এসে জানালেন, উনি হাসতে হাসতে বললেন, ও খুব হাস্যরসিকতা করতেন, কি ধরতে এসছেন আমাকে, ধরুন আমি তৈরি আছি। রাবি ব্রিজের অর্ধেক গেলে পরই তখনই কাশ্মীর, সেখানে কাশ্মীরের পুলিশ দাঁড়িয়ে, তার আগের দিন সই করা ম্যাজিস্ট্রেট দাঁড়িয়ে, তোমাকে অ্যারেস্ট করা হচ্ছে, এবং সেই সঙ্গেই আগে থেকে সই করে রেখে দিয়েছে যে শ্রীনগর জেলেতে তোমাকে নিয়ে গিয়ে রাখা হচ্ছে 2 মাসের জন্য। 2 মাসের জন্য কেন? সেই সময় জওহরলাল নেহরু যাচ্ছেন বিলেতে কুইনের করোনেশনে, উনি 2 মাস থাকবেন না। সেই 2 মাস যে থাকবেন না, একে ওইখানে আটক করে রেখে দেয়। কেননা তার আগে দিল্লিতে ওকে সেকশন 144 ভায়োলেট করার জন্য অ্যারেস্ট করেছিল, সে কেস চলছিল, কিন্তু ওকে বন্দি করে রেখেছিল। সুপ্রিম কোর্টে খালাস করে দেয়, বলে তার বিচার হোক, তাকে বন্দি করে রাখবে কেন? সেই জন্য তিনি ছাড়া পেরেছেন, কিন্তু তাকে তখন ধরলে আর চারিদিকে প্রচার করে দিলে শেখ আবদুল্লাহ পর্যন্ত, যে উনি পারমিট না নিয়ে ঢুকছিলেন বলে তাকে, যে সম্পূর্ণ মিথ্যে। শহর থেকে 10 মাইল দূরে একটা কার বাগানবাড়ি নাকি একটা বাড়ি পড়েছিল অ্যাবান্ডান, সেই বাড়িতে ওকে নিয়ে গিয়ে পড়লে, সেইখানে রেখে দিলে, তাকে আর্ম গার্ড দিয়ে তার বাইরে যেতে পারে না। উনি যা চিঠিপত্র লিখতেন, সেই চিঠি কখনো আসতো কখনো আসতো না। মার চিঠিগুলো বেশি করে আটকে রেখে দিত, ওকে দিত না। তারপরে ওর কী অসুখ হলো, কবে অসুখ হলো, কী চিকিৎসা হলো, কেউ জানি না। একদিন হঠাৎ কাগজে খবর বেরোলো একসঙ্গে যে তিনি মারা গেছেন এবং তিনি অসুস্থ, হাসপাতালে গেছেন, একসঙ্গে মারা যাওয়ার সঙ্গে সঙ্গে সেই খবর একই কাগজে বেরোলো। এবং বাড়িতেও তখন খবর দিলে যে শ্যামাপ্রসাদ মুখার্জি ইজ ডেড, হোয়াট ইজ টু বি ডান উইথ হিজ বডি? Sheikh Abdullah wants to know.
History cannot forget the very moving letters written by Dr. Mukherjee's mother to the then Prime Minister, urging that here is a situation in which a person who was hale and hearty a night before suddenly collapsed in this manner. How did it happen? So the minimum that this government owes to the people of India is to have an inquiry made into it. Somehow the then government and the then Prime Minister did not agree to it, and the result of it is that till today the nation is unaware as to whether that was a natural death or something worse, the result of foul play.
Let us see how Shama Prasad got himself involved with Indian politics, a role which was somewhat unexpected. He was the son of the legendary Ashutosh Mukherjee, the great scholar, the famous jurist, the ardent educationist of Bengal. For 3 decades, Calcutta University was equated with Ashutosh Mukherjee, for he steered the affairs of the premier university of India against all odds, both British apathy and indigenous inhibitions. Ashutosh strode the Bengal scene in the first quarter of this century like a colossus. Shama Prasad was born in Calcutta on the 6th of July, 1901. He had a brilliant academic career and took up Bengali for his master's degree to prove that his father and he meant what they said about the prime importance of the mother tongue in education. In 1924, Shama Prasad enrolled as an advocate at the Calcutta High Court, following the footsteps of his father. The same year, he was elected Fellow of the Calcutta University and appointed a member of the syndicate. Between 1926 and 27, he studied law in England and was called to the English bar. In 1929, he was a Congress candidate and was elected to the Bengal Legislative Council, but resigned next year when the Congress decided to boycott the legislatures. He was re-elected as an independent candidate. In 1934, he was appointed Vice Chancellor of the University of Calcutta at the age of 33. He served 2 terms. Till then, He was still following the footsteps of his father. Nobody anticipated the fierce political man that he would eventually become. Till this moment, he was an educationist, administering a university with numerous problems. Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan said, "I first met him in 1921 when I took up the philosophy chair in Calcutta University, and as the years passed, I developed great admiration and affection for him. He was a man of wide knowledge and unshakable purpose. He had to choose between public service and private happiness, and he chose the former." Dr. Prafulla Chandra Ray, the great scientist and teacher, unable to get some vital instruments for research by his students, ultimately had to appeal to him. And the funds, of course, were granted. The Calcutta University Convocation in 1937 was unique in the sense that its principal address was delivered by Rabindranath Tagore and in Bengali. Tagore was fulsome in his praise of Shyama Prasad, who he said was the true son of a great father. In 1937, Shyama Prasad was elected to the Bengal Legislative Assembly under the reformed constitution, and when he completed 2 terms as Vice-Chancellor, he joined active politics. In 1940, he was the working president of the All India Hindu Mahasabha, a post he held for 4 years. Shyama Prasad became the finance minister of Bengal in the second Fazlul Haq Progressive Coalition ministry, but within a year he resigned. He resigned because he found provincial autonomy a colossal mockery.
1941 Midnapur cyclone. Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee was then a member of the Ministry of Bengal. The entire news of the havoc of the cyclone was kept away from the rest of the country for at least a fortnight. And Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee was fretting and fuming over this delay even of the government, in keeping the people informed of the disaster that had happened. Even being in the government, he could not know of it. Later on in the assembly, he made a statement by saying that the government had no knowledge of this incident. Closely on the heels of this 41 cyclone, which meant terrible sufferings to the people of Midnapur, there came the August movement of 1942, what is known as the Quit India movement. And almost men and women of Midnapur rose up in revolt against the British government. And there was inhuman atrocity committed by the British military, for suppressing the August movement. This was too much for Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee to tolerate. He resigned from the ministry. In 1943, there came the Bengal famine, which has gone down also in history as a man-made famine. Being nearest to the approaching areas of the enemy, the scorched earth policy of the British government practically denied the people of their food. And this man-made famine created devastation in the whole of Bengal. 3 million people died like rats, and more millions were dying of starvation. Dr. Mukherjee jumped into the fray. He was not in the government. He had not the resources Well, he went to the whole of India and collected money, resources, cloth, food, well, for distribution among the people of West Bengal. I was entrusted by this man for organizing and also for getting reports from the relief centers of the different parts of West Bengal.
1945, INA Day in Calcutta. The students were on the streets and faced police firing. Another Jallianwala Bagh was threatened. There was no other leader in sight. Shama Prasad, not in very good health, controlled the students on one hand and pleaded with the police not to take resort to reckless repression. 1946, the great Calcutta killing. Shama Prasad was again elected to the Bengal Legislative Assembly. He made vain attempts to control the communal frenzy, incited and abetted by the ruling government. All along, he was in the picture when important things were happening. In 1941, he took part in the Cripps mission deliberations. He pointed out the hollowness of the Cripps offer. He outlined to Lord Linlithgow the conditions of India's participation in the war efforts in 1942. Indians must be taken into confidence for meaningful participation. In 1946, he was elected a member of the Constituent Assembly from Bengal. The country was free. Shama Prasad joined the Nehru cabinet as Industries and Supply Minister. He was one of the architects of the mixed economy concept. He was an integral part of the Hindu Mahasabha since 1939. Now he thought the political tasks were over. He advised the Hindu Mahasabha Working Committee to give up politics and to turn to social and cultural activities. The suggestion was accepted, but only for a short while. Shama Prasad resigned from the Mahasabha executive. But in the ministry, he was failing to see eye to eye with Nehru, particularly with his Pakistan policy.
Fact is that Dr. Mukherjee resigned from the union government headed by Pandit Nehru earlier on the issue of the Nehru-Liaquat Pact. He had a different approach to the problem of East Bengal, which was part of Pakistan at that time, but about which he used to tell the government that East Bengal should not be regarded as part of Pakistan. It's a separate entity altogether, and the approach should be somewhat different.
Shama Prasad Mukherjee had certain difficulties, certain differences with the Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, particularly over the question of assistance, adequate relief, and so on and so forth to the refugees who were coming after independence in a stream that never ended, a stream of refugees from East Bengal. And Shama Prasad Mukherjee took up their cause, and he found it impossible to continue as a member of the cabinet, which was run by the Congress and under the leadership of Jawaharlal Nehru. So Shama Prasad Mukherjee also resigned as a member of the government of India. Now he continued in public life in his own fashion, and he started his own political party, the Jan Sangh, on the eve of the first elections to Parliament in 1952.
Then started a battle royal between Nehru and Shama Prasad. This battle had all the elements of a Greek tragedy. The two men were poles apart in their political vision. To Nehru, communalism was an absolute term and absolutely heinous. Shama Prasad had all along said and practiced what he said, that he had no enmity with Muslims. He had the guts to share the Fazlul Haq ministry, which was the true expression of Hindu-Muslim unity. In fact, nobody could complain that Shama Prasad was communal.
He was not a communally minded person. When he was Vice Chancellor of Calcutta University, for example, he would encourage not only the study of ancient Indian history and culture, but also, following his father Ashutosh Mukherjee's example, he was a great patron of the study of a subject like Islamic history and culture. And I have known people who had gone to East Bengal of those days, became a minister, who have said things about the non-communal approach which Shyama Prasad Mukherjee often had.
Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee was, if you say that he was a Muslim hater and communal of that type, I don't think that will be proper accurate. One of the occasions when I had to very close, I remember Khaleda Edib Hanum, the education minister, the lady education minister of Turkey, who came to India at that time. It was Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee who organized a meeting in the university campus where Mrs. Khaleda Edib Hanum addressed the gathering. That is how I see. I don't think in this way. Sir Ashutosh brought in many Muslim talents in the Calcutta University, and Dr. Mukherjee also, he was not, I don't think he was any lacking in that spirit of the thing.
Dr. Radhakrishnan said, though he was for many years connected with the Hindu Mahasabha and the Jan Sangh, his religion was not of the narrow kind. He was Catholic in his sympathies and broad-minded in his outlook. Patriotism is not merely love of the land in which we are born. It is respect for the ideals by which we are sustained. That man has a spiritual dimension, that its development can take place in various ways, that we should have respect for all these ways are some of the cardinal features of the Indian tradition. It is Indian and not merely Hindu. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee was an ardent advocate of these great ideals.
I would say that the principal issue that cropped up in 1952, which projected Dr. Mukherjee in a big way as a statesman who could view afar, was the issue of Kashmir. And I look back today, talking in 1990 today, with Kashmir absolutely in turmoil, one cannot help paying a tribute to the vision of that great statesman who in 1952 could visualize the tragic consequences that would come to this country by allowing Kashmir to have a separate constitution under Article 370. He gave an inspiring slogan to the country and led a movement on that issue in 1953 and said, "Ek desh mein do vidhan, एक देश में दो प्रधान, एक देश में दो निशान, नहीं चलेंगे, नहीं चलेंगे." Meaning that in one country you cannot have two constitutions, two presidents, and two flags. Separatism is germane in such a situation. And it is this that Pakistan has exploited fully by telling the people of Kashmir that your accession to India is not final. Because if it had been final, then like the other states who had separate constitutions, your constitution also would have become part of the Indian constitution. But the fact that you have a separate constitution under Article 370 indicates that your future is still to be decided.
He was an outstanding parliamentarian. He could say, for example, at one point of time, I remember, when we were discussing the bill to authorize preventive detention without trial. And Shyama Prasad Mukherjee naturally was opposing preventive detention, and at one point from the government benches someone had interjected, "Dr. Mukherjee, you face the truth." And Shyama Prasad Mukherjee's instant reply was, "How can I face the truth? I'm facing the treasury benches." Now this was a kind of retort which should be remembered as a classic in parliamentary history.
He was a fighter, but a fighter who knew parliamentary nuances thoroughly. In fact, I have seen him in Parliament only from the press gallery. I was not a member of Parliament those days, but this everyone would vouchsafe and testify that if anyone came to know that Dr. Mukherjee is to speak today in this debate or at such and such a time, the whole house would be packed. Not one member would be absent. Everyone would think that if I miss his speech, I would be missing something precious, something historical. Even till today, people who go through his speeches from the parliamentary records would always find something remarkable, something enlightening, and something inspiring in all those speeches.
I'm speaking as a former communist member of parliament for 25 years. In the time that we worked together, we had many differences, but we had at the same time many agreements on essential matters. And insofar as parliamentary functioning was concerned, his performance was superb. There is no doubt about his having been one of the outstanding parliamentarians that our country has had in history. And therefore we remember him not as a person who had been associated with the Hindu Mahasabha. It is only a very small part of his character and his career. It was a man who had given his all to the country. His talents were variegated, and as a public figure, as well as a leader of public opinion, not only in Bengal, but in the whole of India, he had a position which deserves his being remembered.
I would only say that Dr. Mukherjee's name will always be remembered as a great patriot, as a great nationalist, and as a member of parliament I can say that he is one of the greatest parliamentarians, not only the Indian parliament but perhaps all parliamentary democracies have seen.